Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
So, they got these guilds of Ravnica. We got some gates, all kinds of guilds of Ravnica falling on us.
Well, for now, I got a feeling that in not too long, it's going to be, we'll have a trophy to show for our work, and that's about it. The guild pack it's over. It's a wrap for that. Dude, what the hell is going on with this set?
I mean,
dude, Assassin's Trophy?
I went back and I wrote every week on magicthegathering.com for more than 10 years. So starting in I don't remember, a bazillion years ago, for 10 plus years, I wrote it on that website. I got exactly I never missed a deadline. I got exactly one article rejected. And the article I got rejected was my original preview for Lightning Helix. Because, think about a perspective on Lightning Helix. You look at this before you see any of the other Ravnica cards, you're just like, this card is absurdly too good. R&D doesn't know what they're doing. Not surprisingly, I got that one rejected. What if I had seen Assassin's Trophy? Jeez.
Well, I'm not saying that they know what they're doing. What I am saying is that this card is... Okay, so compare this card to freaking Vindicate. This is black, green, instant, destroy target permanent, and that's not non-land... Yeah, of course. Why? Why not? Destroy target permanent an opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle their library.
There's just so much going on with this card, and the design directions going around the kinds of things going on in this card. We could probably talk about nothing but this card. So to start with, it's an instant. So you said compared to Vindicate, not only is it 50% less mana than a Vindicate, it's not
50% less.
Well, a Vindicate is 50% more than this. Sorry.
That's true, but it is 33 and a
33% less than a Vindicate, sure. But it's an instant, and the thing that gets me on this is back in the day we used to be so naive. I remember that there was discussion when Path to Exile came out. Is this a good card? You're just giving...
Not to me.
There was discussion. I'm not saying you didn't have... people said stuff like this, right? Is this even a card that we want to play? It's just anti-card advantage, whatever. So the thing is, the design trends in these formats, like Modern, for example, actually, let's not even go there yet, right? The same thing got echoed with Settle the Wreckage, right? Which is just the magnified version. Obviously, both of those cards just became the staplest staples, and control decks even care how many basic lands you searched up when you blitz them into a Settle the Wreckage. The problem, if you go even into the pushing the end of the envelope formats like Modern right now, they don't care how many basic lands you can search up, because they just max out on stuff like Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter, Path to Exile, and they just go with Crucible of Worlds in some cases. You just run out of basics to the point that they're just Ghost Quartering your basics.
Wait, so I'm still following. Is this yes or no?
This card is dumb. This is one of the best
cards.
Is
this better than Vindicate?
Yes. Not close. Not even close, in my opinion.
I think it's close, but I think it's better than Vindicate.
So Vindicate had the added ability to... When Vindicate was legal in block, right? And there was the Esper Angel deck back then. There was a play pattern that was just recoils and Vindicates on your land, which is obviously not a healthy play pattern to encourage. You can't really do that with Assassin's Trophy in the same way, but... there's just no downside to this in a long game, and it gets...
Well, there is the extra land.
No, not in what I'm saying is a long game. They just run out. They just run out of basics. There's nothing more to search for. The number of times I got to my third mountain in the last several Modern tournaments I played in is many. You just run out of basics.
I'm just saying that this is black-green. Settle the Wreckage and Path to Exile all stack, as well as white creatures that prevent searching.
Yeah.
So that things like Ghost Quarter have new meaning in Modern. That is that's a particular axis. Black-green is not necessarily the color combination that's already making you run out.
That's fair.
But regardless, yeah, this card's bananas. It's like, okay, think about the difference between Path to Exile and Terminate, right? Like, for 1 mana less, they get a land, right? Now, Path also has the added benefit of exiling, but, like, Terminate's a really good card. Path to Exile's better, right?
Yeah, Path to Exile is a 4 of in almost every control deck in Modern, in white, obviously, and it's at least like a 2 of in aggro decks in white.
Assassin's Trophy, first of all, being compared to Vindicate's messed up anyway, because Vindicate is a messed up Magic card. Like, Vindicate would be messed up. Vindicate would be disgusting at 4.
I mean, to be clear, first of all, you played it at 4, right, when it was black and red, and it was awesome in your deck.
It wasn't even Vindicate. It was just land and creatures.
So, Stone Rain is too good. Vindicate is the Stone Rain that also kills creatures...
Stone Rain is not too good, by the way. Just so you know. Stone Rain is not too good.
Too good to print.
No, it's not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's Assassin's Trophy is a mana less than Vindicate, but the difference between 2 and 3 is not as big as the difference between 1 and 2. And it doesn't exile, but it gets something even better. Being an instant is better than exiling. And, the big difference, though, the subtle, quiet nerf that I think was really smart on their part, is that Assassin's Trophy can't target your own stuff the way the Path to Exile could.
Yeah, so Path to Exile turned a lot of your stuff into like a Sakura Tribe Elder, especially to escape removal. Like if your opponent's going to Searing Blood your creature, it doesn't work with Searing Blaze, but if they're going to Searing Blood your creature, you can shoot your own Path to Exile on it, get out of the damage from the Searing Blood, and then go search. Can't do that with Assassin's Trophy.
So I think this card is going to be a cross-format staple. Modern, obviously, Vindicate's not even legal, so we're not going to see the comparison. I think Assassin's Trophy will get played more in Legacy than Vindicate does. I don't know. If it were standard, I don't know for sure that Assassin's Trophy would actually get played more than Vindicate would.
Well,
but Vindicate's
it's not
so
legal.
Different. And Vindicate is a 12. So, yeah, I think this card is a slam dunk.
So, well, a couple of things on this. I think the most natural...
It promotes really sketchy things. I don't know why are they doing this, but I guess it generates buzz.
So, I think the most natural comparison is between this and Abrupt Decay, right? Like, same casting cost, very similar abilities. Obviously, this is a more flexible targeting. Abrupt Decay can't be countered. This has a potential downside. Still think Assassin's Trophy is better than Abrupt Decay, yeah?
Yeah. It literally hits land.
Yeah, it literally hits Urza's lands. That's the thing that I'm thinking about.
Dude, what about if it hits a permanent that costs 4 or more?
You're ahead. What if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have any basics, or not very many basics anyway?
So I don't know. I think this card's pretty good. And in Standard, the interesting thing is that with stuff like the Scarab God rotating out, it's less there's no Hazaret, there's no the Scarab God, so it's actually less important to be Exile instead of Destroy.
Good point. You know what I really like about this card? Is that it just... I think when you said that it promotes sketchy things, maybe this is what you were talking about. Like, in the previous format, prior to this set coming into Standard, Guilds of Ravnica, it's not that deck designers had to be so disciplined, but they did have to take into consideration things like how many unlicensed disintegrations they were going to play versus abrades versus lightning strikes. Because all of those cards are good, all those cards have similar effects, but they're like not identical, right? Like abrade can't go to face, lightning strike can't destroy an artifact. All of a sudden, if you're playing Assassin's Trophy, deck designers get even less disciplined, right?
Oh, that's not even the thing I meant. I think that part's sweet. I think that actually is a positive, that it gives outs like an additional space for smooth. Like that part, I don't mind that. I meant that Assassin's Trophy is really good against anybody dumb enough to play with a card with a text box.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's you know what Assassin's Trophy is not good against? A deck with a bunch of counter spells that just wants to cast March of the Multitudes instead of committing any threats to the table.
What I don't like, yeah,
whatever.
Well, I mean, they still have to play their. Yeah, you can't mana screw somebody with this because they're just going to go search for a basic most of the time.
You know what else this isn't good against? This isn't good against somebody who just plays with a bunch of cards that draw a card when you play them.
It's not, because this is just promoting their strategy, right?
But, like, some of this stuff could be okay. I think this card could actually be super dope. If they pull this off right, I mean, this card is obviously outrageously attractive because its rate is, like, bananas. Like, people would I think this card would see a non-zero amount of play at 4.
Really? With the same downside?
Yep. A non-zero amount,
just
for
not
sure.
Very
I don't
much
just
play. Okay, I got
not as much because, like, no. Think about it. Think about utter end.
Yeah.
Like losing 3 life, or they get a basic land. That's at least like in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah. Sometimes they don't get a basic land. That's the
and like Assassin's Trophy can actually hit non-basic land, whereas utter end actually exiles something. I think this card would be comparable to utter end if it costs 4.
What I don't like about this card is, last week we were talking about how cool a permanent like Conclave Tribunal is. It has Convoke, but it's basically, it's a forecast and cost Oblivion Ring. It's just kind of depressing to me, right? Poor white mage.
Just how good this card is against it?
Yeah, against that. 'Cause like you said, a goober with a forecast and cost spell with a text box. That's not a good matchup for Assassin's Trophy.
I do think, though, I do think, though, that some amount, I think if you're going to push some, I mean, you got to push some cards, and the card that gives the other person a basic land is actually just, I think, such a smart card to push. I think that the amount that you're supposed to push cards like Path to Exile, Settle the Wreckage, Ghost Quarter, any of that stuff, just got so much more appetite for that. But regardless, I just can't wait until week 1. Shaheen is just untapping 2 land with Teferi and then using those 2 land to cast Assassin's Trophy.
I mean, speaking of Teferi, this just gives the most convenient way to just shoot any Planeswalker for 2 mana, no matter how expensive it was.
For the most part.
Yeah, this is...
So what's a black-green deck even look... What does it even look like? I mean, like, for instance... Does Nullhide Ferox fit into the equation at all? That's the new 2GG, 6/6 hexproof. You can't cast non-creature spells. And you can pay 2 mana. Nullhide Ferox loses all abilities until end of turn. Any player may activate this ability. And if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard Nullhide Ferox, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard.
So this seems like an excellent card to me. I'll have you recall that I once played a 6/6 for 4 in an extended Pro Tour that had a downside, no hexproof, and no discard advantage.
You're saying like 3 less abilities?
Oh, yeah. It had a disadvantage. I once cast it, and my opponent put a Spirit of the Night into play. That was a humpus wumpus in the parlance of Gerard Fabiano. I think this card is excellent. 6/6 for 4, hexproof. Very, very.
Well, it's not really hexproof because it's also
light.
Yeah, it's kind of like Frost Titan.
I mean, you're speaking my language. You know how I felt about the Frost Titan.
You know, where they have to pay 2 extra in order to do it?
Yeah.
But, like, the ability you can't cast non-creature spells, that's not that good of an ability.
No, it's in fact a slight disadvantage unless your deck is all creature spells.
Ah, now we're getting to the heart of it.
Yeah, there is wide precedent, including arguably the strongest deck in Modern, to just play creatures, right? So I don't know that that's actually accomplishable easily in Standard, but we have creatures that do all kinds of things that you might want, from searching for extra lands to killing creatures when they come into play. So, you could have like your elves to accelerate and your chupacabras to kill something, and your, I don't know, your district guides to fix your mana and all of that going on. You might have very few non-creature spells in some versions of a Nullhide Ferox deck.
So let's imagine you're playing some kind of if your plan is to drop like Teferi or Ralzeric on turn 5, if this guy comes down on turn 4, aren't you in like a really awkward spot?
Why? Because you're going to play Teferi and then they're just going to eat it with their 6/6 hexproof?
Right, like that's actually pretty like constraining, right?
Yeah, I mean, what if they played on turn 3 because they played Llanowar Elf or another accelerator? Right, I think that's pretty attractive. I mean, you might lead with a 5/4 also, right? Like you could just have accelerators and some card drawing and just like really, really compelling monsters. I mean, you have to trade, I don't know, any kind of a plan B for that, but if your plan A is good enough, might get you there.
So here's a question for you, man. What do these black-green decks even look like that are like? And this is still, you know, Assassin's Trophy, Nullhide Ferox adjacent. But first of all, do these two cards go together?
They will almost. I would say that almost certainly, if there is a successful Nullhide Ferox deck, some version of it will have some number of Assassin's Trophy in the 75. I don't know if they're both in Plan A together, but I can both think of a deck that would have Assassin's Trophy in the main that sideboarded Nullhide Ferox, and also a heavy Nullhide Ferox deck that would at least sideboard Assassin's Trophy. I can imagine both of those things. Like you might be like mono creatures main deck, but just concede you need some flexibility after sideboarding. That's not unusual.
It'd be hard to not play Assassin's Trophy. And one of the nice things with Nullhide Ferox's 2-cost ability is that if you really got to use the Assassin's Trophy, well, you can just pay the 2 for the Ferox, and then you're just paying retail for the Assassin's Trophy anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not that bad, right? You've already got 4.
It's not that bad.
Because you cast Nullhide Ferox, right? So I think this card's quite good.
What about Izoni Thousand-Eyed? The 2 black, green, 2/3 legendary elf shaman. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 black and green insect for each creature card in your graveyard, and you can pay a green and a black and sacrifice another creature to gain a life and draw a card.
Well, I'm not nearly as sunny on Izoni Thousand-Eyed. Couple of things. Yeah, so it's potentially very powerful, right? But these are my concerns.
Potentially very powerful. Those are the weasel's way.
Yeah, well, you got to do a lot of work, right? So expected turn this comes out, let's call it. It actually gets worse the faster you cast it, right? In standard anyway, it's not easy to get a lot of things into your graveyard. If you're going to play maybe it's better in like a bigger format that it's super easy to get creatures in your graveyard, like anything from Sakura Tribelder to a Street Wraith, right? Those can be creatures that go into your graveyard profitably and for very little mana. In fact, a Sakura Tribelder promotes your mana. But a 2/3 for 6 that might not have a lot going on, and then its ability is awesome, but it costs 2, right? It's not like in a world where people, you're just going to assume that somebody's going to chain whirler all your 1/1s, and then
Why would I assume that? It's turn 6.
Because chain whirler's still in the format.
So, like, if chain whirler's going to get its money anyway, you got to just walk that off. I'm saying that, like, if this guy comes down and regularly is giving you 4 or 5 tokens, that's already something, right?
Oh, that's very powerful, right? Like,
and if you untap,
that's better than Elspeth the first turn you have Elspeth in play.
And if you untap with this guy, and you now just have this incredible source of Sphinx's Revelation going on from now on, and then you also have you have like the long range plan of getting into a spot where, sometimes you just make like 14 guys.
Oh, yeah, if you play Izoni on, like, turn 20 or something, this card's probably live. You have, like, 6 untapped land or something, a ton of creatures in your graveyard. At the end of a very long attrition match, it's very, very powerful. But I was just kind of thinking about it, like, what's the average Izoni look like?
Medium.
You think the average Izoni has four tokens coming alongside? That's basically like...
We haven't seen all the enablers. It depends on how many, Satyr Wayfinders and whatnot. How many Satyr Wayfinders they might put in this set.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, if we can do, like, some surveilling along the way, that's going to be something that could positively impact him. Or if, God forbid, there's a Street Wraith or something like that in the format. Or, what's the name of the guy, the 1/1 black guy that you play him and you just, like, mill yourself for 3? Came out in the last set.
Yeah.
Like, that guy can also jump in front of an attacker, maybe trade. So these are all good ways to be fueling your graveyard for Izoni. But I mean, I think 6-7 for 6 is not, I think, an unreasonable estimate across 5 bodies now. Just Izoni himself is very fragile at 2-3.
Yeah, but I mean, like, compare this card to, like, I think the app comparison is like the Hornet Queen. Her tokens were so much better, flying and death touch. So, like, even though this costs a mana less, I think you got to have, like, a very meaningful part of the range be the times where you get 10, 12 tokens to really have this pay off.
Oh yeah, I mean the Hornet Queen is weirdly, for such an expensive card and such like a powerful end game card, was fairly surgical, right? Like you didn't want it all the time. But it did a very specific thing well, right? It traded up really, really well. It's actually odd to think of a 7-drop trading up, but that's kind of what it did.
But yeah, like I think that if you end up being able to put, like, if there's a deck, and I bet there is, but if there's a deck that involves a bunch of stuff like the aforementioned Stitcher Supplier and any Satyr Wayfinders that might come along, you could really be getting into something, because like the more that you turn this into like sort of a sideways Ishkana Graph Widow, there's a future for Ishkana Graph Widows.
You know what? I think I take it back. What if, because this is already in black and green, what if your entire early game is like 12 Explore guys? Right, it's just all Jadelight Ranger.
Jadelight Ranger and the both of the 2-drops.
Merfolk Branchwalker, and like everybody's just flipping over stuff into the graveyard for the first several turns of the game, and you're getting one of two things: you're either getting the land that you need to cast an expensive 6-drop creature, or you're binning creatures into your graveyard because you're playing like maybe not mono creatures but largely creatures deck. Like Izoni could easily be very, very powerful in a deck like that. And then every guy you're playing is just all value. Like if you imagine like District Guide is the dorky guy in your deck, and everybody else is much more Izoni forward.
Well, actually, on the Golgari sort of self-mill grinding explore card advantage front, do you think that there's any way Find Finality could play a role? And in particular, I'm talking about the front side, Find, which is Golgari. You can pay, any combination of black and green, but 2 mana, sorcery, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, like a 2-mana draw 2 is kind of interesting, right?
Oh, that's really good, I think, right? So this is one of those curious cards that is costed pretty attractively. It's at Golgari, it's only 2, but you actually don't want to cast it super early most of the time. I think this is like one of these cards that you hold it in your hand for a chunk of the game, and then maybe you cast it on turn 6, get back 2 Explore guys with it that traded earlier in the game, and then just basically draw 2 more cards with it. That would be kind of cool, I think.
I could see that. Particularly, I mean, if you've just got enough like Ravenous Chupacabra types where you're just never going to run out of gas, but you have like actual utility options.
Oh, yeah. I think that the ability to... Actually, that's really cool. If you have Explore guys and you bin a Ravenous Chupacabra with an Explore guy, then you use Find in order to... It becomes kind of like a tutor, right? Like, I guess like leaving on top of your library is also a similar thing there. But but I guess you would want the optionality in a deck that presumably has Izoni Thousand-Eyed.
I'm just saying that sometimes early on, you bin stuff that come turn 5 you might be really into.
Oh, yeah, and just trading in order to not take damage is also a thing, right? Like, that's...
Yeah.
But I think that Finality is also awesome, right? If you're playing...
4 black-green, you may put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature that you control, and then all creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn.
Yeah.
Why is this one awesome?
Because it's just like it's just a Wrath that you have.
It's a languish for 2 mana more.
But it's not. You're not playing it for the Finality. You're playing it for the find, but you get the Finality.
You're saying like as a bonus.
Oh yeah,
it's very useful. It's not so incredibly efficiently costed, but it is a very well appreciated option. Yeah, that I could see that.
It's just like, how often have you just been playing, like, I don't know, a soulless black red or something, and then you're falling behind and you're like, man, I really wish I had whatever damnation kind of card that you might have available to you. A Bantu's Last Reckoning or something, right? And that's not a card you would normally consider playing, but you get into spots where you would really want a Bantu's Last Reckoning. This is a cheap way to get that kind of an effect into a deck that might not normally want to play Wraths because it's almost all creatures.
Mm-hmm. Dude, what's up with the multiple Golgari terminates? Like, stature. Like, when you just play status stature and Assassin's Trophy in your deck, how is that right?
Well, this is actually a great test because you said you think that people would play Assassin's Trophy at 4. Stature isn't quite Assassin's Trophy at 4, but it's got some of that going on there. I think this card is flexible enough to play some number.
Well, it depends on your deck, right? Like, even though, I know it's not like the newest story on the block or whatever, but dude, this with Goblin Chainwhirler, it's really hard with no Stomping Ground and no Blood Crypt yet. But like, I think you can make the mana potentially work. And if you status your Goblin Chainwhirler,
oh yeah,
that's just a really big game.
That's just, they pick up all their cards and go home, but they actually had to pick up all their cards anyway. That was just their rules, the rules text.
It's not Golgari, but what do you think of Response and Resurgence? This is the front side, is Boros. Deal 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And you can pay 5 on the backside, so 3 red, white, to creatures you control get first strike and vigilance until end of turn, but also you Relentless Assault. You get to untap your guys and attack again.
I think this is a card that has some decent potential.
Not even untap your guys because they have vigilance, but whatever.
Response at Boros is pretty close to cards that white decks have played in the past, like cards along the lines of like a Blessed Alliance, right? Something that costs 2 mana, or like a Gideon's Reproach. Something that costs...
Right, it's better than Gideon's Reproach already, I think.
I mean, it's a little harder to cast, right?
Not necessarily if you're playing a Boros deck.
In a Boros deck, it's easier to cast, right? Like in a blue-white deck, it's a little harder to cast. But it's very comparable to cards that people are already playing, right? In terms of cost and effect. And, a lot of the time, those decks get in a situation where they might be like, I'm not, the exact creatures or permanents are going to be different, but over the course of eras, we're used to people, playing a cat that makes multiple tokens or playing a planeswalker that makes multiple tokens as their endgame threat in blue-white or red-white control decks, an Elspeth or a Regal Caracal. And you might just want a Resurgence, like if you draw that card at that point in the game, So I think like you're playing it for the response, but again, it's like the Resurgence is actually, it's going to be pretty good for you sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Relentless Assault has had a few days in the sun. This is not a trivial, and this is not just Relentless Assault. First Strike and Vigilance is super dope because even after the second attack, they end up still untapped, which is different than any of the sort of Relentless Assault types. And having First Strike is also kind of a big game, you know? Like this card is not trivial.
Yeah, so I think that also widens the kind of decks that might want to play this. Like I started with playing it in a red-white or a blue-white control deck because, you know, I'm kind of keying on response. But I don't think there's like a red-white beatdown deck of some kind or like mid-range creature deck could certainly just play this and then be accepting of either side like a reasonable amount of the time. Like I can just imagine just having I don't know, like a dragon in play or something. You're just like casting the Resurgence side and getting 2 good swings in and having a defender left, or like an angel in play. Like that's not bad. Like you can think of way worse things than that, especially if the angel perhaps has lifelink, you know.
Sure.
Something like that.
Dude, on the Boros front, though, what's up with Deafening Clarion? This is that choose one or both that does 3 damage to each creature, and creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. Which, by the way, what in the world is going on where they have... there's like split cards that are hybrid and multicolored, but then there's also... modal cards that are multicolored that are choose one or both.
Yeah, so some of them have different casting costs. Some of them have the same casting cost.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Rosewater once told me that one of the great secrets of design, you know, the design part of R&D, was that they did the same things over and over again, but then sometimes called them cantrips and sometimes made them like a cycling trigger, right? And then so that they could keep the costs in effect within certain ranges, while at the same time paying kind of like thematic tribute to the blocks they were working on. I think it's odd here that we basically have a card that, you know, it's a split card, but maybe not. Maybe it's both cards. And it always costs the same versus cards that cost 2 sometimes and 5 times sometimes, or 1 sometimes and 4 sometimes. But anyway, just speaking of this card, at 1 RW, dealing 3 damage to each creature is a highly playable effect. That one that's solid. I like it. And then creatures you control gaining lifelink until end of turn. I guess I could find use for that sometimes, you know, as a bonus.
Wait, well, hold on, wait. So let me get this straight. I can choose creatures I control gain lifelink until end of turn, but I can also choose not to. Okay, this time I choose to. But isn't this kind of like an important potential addition to a Jeskai to Fairy deck?
Well, yeah, just the Wrath side is awesome, right? Its cost is fantastic. Its effect will be highly relevant. You know,
the top one.
Yeah, the top one. Like, I mean, I don't know about getting life. I'm sure sometimes you'll like to have the lifelink, but the only creatures they play have lifelink already, so... I mean, I guess it's cool if you like have a 5/5 flyer in play and then you cast this and your guy lives and their guys all die. Like that's
this card's gonna be dope with dinosaurs.
Yeah, you think it's gonna be a dinosaur friend?
Oh, maybe, but man.
Oh man, some of those dinosaurs draw cards when you damage them and then don't die.
Right.
Maybe you're right. Sorry, Llanowar elves, your job was done. Hopefully they tap the Llanowar elf for the Deafening Clarion. That's all
very different space, but we were looking for another good goblin, and I wonder if we found it. Goblin Cratemaker is 1 in a red for a 2/2. You can pay a colorless and sacrifice Goblin Cratemaker to choose one. Goblin Cratemaker deals 2 damage to target creature, or destroy target colorless non-land permanent.
I mean, this card is fantastic, right?
Compare this to your beloved Hearthkami.
I mean, I was comparing this to what's the Boros Goblin that Fujita used to play, RW for a 2/2. It's very similar to that. It's very similar to the one that that Peacell used to play, Ember Hauler. I mean, it's a little worse than Ember Hauler, right, from the damaging standpoint. But the fact that you could just play this and then take out, I don't know, whatever awesome permanent they have, like this can take out a Reality Smasher, right?
Sure, that's true.
I mean,
but
like,
I think that
I don't know if that matchup comes up that often, but it could.
In standard, it's mostly going to be destroy an artifact or Karn, right? Or deal 2 damage to a creature.
Yeah, I think it's very solid card.
Goblins, man. Is it time?
I don't know, like maybe it's...
That sounds like it, no.
I think it's just like a good guy. Like you don't have to be goblins. You just be like, just bros. Just throw back some cold ones. You know, hey, are we goblins? Yeah, sure. But maybe we've got an elf on our squad. Maybe there's a dragon or two. I don't know. We don't have to, cut it along racial lines when we can cut it along guild lines.
I don't know what you mean by racial.
You know, a goblin.
You're talking about type? Well, that has nothing to do with race. I only see type. I don't see race. Runaway Steam-Kin, however, is that the 2-drop in red that actually has your eye? That's the one in a red 1/1. Whenever you cast a red spell, if Runaway Steam-Kin has fewer than 3+1/+1 counters on it, get busy in a Burger King bathroom. And you can remove 3+1/+1 counters from Runaway Steam-Kin to get red.
Man, this card certainly has a lot of stuff going on. I don't know. I think like it's not the most efficient beatdown creature, right? It'll probably see some homes in mono red aggro decks. I do like the ability to randomly get 3 red. That's pretty good. But it has a terminal point on 3+1/+1 counters, right? At least from its natural abilities.
No. Then it just loops back around again.
So it's only if it has fewer than 3, you put a +1/+1 on it, right?
Right.
So you're saying he's got to remove the 3? Yeah, but it just never gets bigger than... I guess going up to 4/4 is awesome, actually. Let me just take that back. But I don't know.
Here's an alternative perspective.
Yeah?
What if it's a heritage druid, but instead of having to play elves, you have to play with red spells?
I like red spells.
Dude, isn't this card crazy? In Modern, isn't this going to be part of some sort of like sick combo deck?
Well, if you're playing like Manamorphose, for example, which is a red spell that gives you mana, we put a +1/+1 counter on Runaway Steam-Kin and draw a card. It can actually just enable the next card to get cast because of the mana that it made.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so isn't like, go ahead. Yeah.
It's just combo, like he's a combo-licious looping guy.
Yeah, because like you can use that other ability multiple times in a turn. You just remove 3 counters, get 3 red, cast 3 more spells, get 3 more red.
Well, if you have a Hardened Scales in play, right? For sake of argument, your only green card is Hardened Scales, right? And then you
call it Winding Constrictor.
Sure.
Okay, it can be Hardened Scales.
Whatever it is, right? If you have 2 +1/+1 counters on Runaway Steam-Kin, that's fewer than 3, right? So it'll trigger the ability, but he'll actually go up to 4, right? Because of the ability on Hardened Scales, right? So then you can go take off 3 and still have 1, and then I think you can net. I mean, you can. It's not that you can net +1/+1 counters and mana better. That's like obvious if you're playing a card like Hardened Scales. It's that you can break the natural upper limit of 3, because I think that keeps you from being able to drag its ability over time, right? Like they don't give you the ability to put like a lot of counters that you don't spend all at once.
I think you're really trying to build a Quirion Dryad here. I really think that the future is in Heritage Druid, more than Quirion Druid or Quirion Dryad. Like, if you're going to just keep... I mean, don't get me wrong. If you can pull the counters off more efficiently, great. You know, good on you. Keep a good chunk of them. But, like, if you're going to be actually trying to just combo off with this guy, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I think this card's dope, though.
Well, just on that point, both Heritage Druid and Quirion Dryad were in the best deck in a format more than once. So... Quirion Dryad had it twice in Extended and once in Legacy. So, Heritage Druid obviously was the tops in Extended for the tippity tops in Extended for a while.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I know that at this point you've probably grown a tolerance to it, but are you as excited about District Guide as people assume you are?
I mean, that was the subject of multiple Twitter threads today, right? Like,
I don't know. I haven't been on the Twitter.
Well, it was. They're like, oh my gosh, how did they not give this one to Mike to preview? I think Evan had it to preview. Anyway, yeah, I think it's awesome. It's obviously my favorite card in the set so far. It's even better than Borderland Ranger.
When District Guide enters the battlefield, Borderland Ranger, or get a gate card.
Yeah, so you could play like one Golgari Guildgate just for the District Guide for fixins.
I think it's messed up. The gate to Phyrexia doesn't count as a gate.
Maybe
that's the gate from Antiquities. It's black. And, like, during your upkeep, you can sacrifice a creature to destroy an artifact. You know, like, I just think it's, if you're going to call it a gate, you know.
Well, I would say that at least Gateway Plaza is a gate, and that's not like a traditional gate, right? So
that's
Gateway
true.
Plaza is a common land that enters the battlefield tapped, and you have to pay one when it comes to the battlefield. You have to sacrifice it, but then it's very good after that turn, right? It can tap for any color.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, it's still just a Rupture Spire, right? I mean, it's a guild gate among Rupture Spires.
A Rupture Spire amongst guild gates, perhaps.
So yeah, it's not out of the question, but I'm on the south side of medium on that one. But actually,
but I think just to riff on the question about District Guide, one of the things that I've just been spitballing in my head is just like, how many value creatures can you play all at once? You know, this kind of stuff with Explore guys, and you're just like constantly have cards in hand. Can you translate the cards in your hand, which are largely going to be lands, into more meaningful value, or do you just use that to cast expensive spells? What happens when your opponent plays a real Haymaker? You know, but you
see, the thing I like so much about District Guide is the interaction with Convoke. Isn't that just kind of really nice to have this extra body laying around that you can put to good use?
Sure. I mean, do you imagine this being played with Llanowar Elves? So, like, people play, like, a second-turn District Guide?
I mean, sure. Yeah. Yeah, when things are going well, your green deck has Llanowar Elf. That's true.
Yeah, so, I mean, in that case, you're even more convoking.
Yep. We were talking about black-green some, and District Guide could potentially, depending on what the black-green deck's really trying to do, but I think that District Guide is going to be up against some of the Explore cards. However, whatever mix of all those value guys you end up going to, Necrotic Wound is starting to look better and better, right?
I mean, the price is right on that card.
A one-cost instant? Push it. Push it good. You know, like, this is like a fatal push, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many creatures do you have to actually have in your graveyard before this card is just like working the way that you need it to, right? If you've got like two creatures in the graveyard,
depends on the toughness, I think, in large part, not always, but in large part on the toughness of the target.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, for a 1, what's your expectation? I mean, certainly
2.
like later in the game, you're going to be able to take dragons down with this, no problem.
Dude, this is like the black Scred.
It's very flavorfully the black Scred also, right? Because it gets paid off in like, you know, Scred is also, it's costed so well, and it's also terrible on turn 1.
Yep. Here's a funny way to pull the whole thing together. Secrets of the Mausoleum. 1 in a black, instant, which is an important distinction among these demonic tutors. 1 in a black, instant. Search your library for a black card with converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library.
Ooh. That's very good at instant at 2 mana. You know what we have not thought about, or maybe I haven't thought about until just now with these undergrowth cards, is that we had some pre-existing enablers that just dump creatures into your graveyard, right, from other sets. Some planeswalkers that just turn over the top card of your library, etc.
Yeah, there's some enablers. That's part of the. I think that's part of the joke. You know, like the question though is, how important is it going to be to go find the right black card at the right time? My guess is that's a pretty valuable option.
I mean,
right? Like, I don't think you need to be all in to play a Secrets of the Mausoleum. Like, if you're just playing some sort of a very normal deck, the ability to go find 1 copy of Angrath, like the ability to go find a timely necrotic wound at instant speed so that you can like solve your problem on the cheap. It's not like you need to have that many creatures in your graveyard in the first place. You only need to have 1 in order to go find necrotic wound. So if that's enough for the necrotic wound to do its job. But like there's a lot of really, really juicy targets if you're just searching up black cards, you know? Nico Bolas, for instance, another great one, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can also open the door to a toolbox strategy, right?
Totally. Like, you could conceivably play 1 Duress. Who knows? Right? Like,
I like that 1 Duress.
Yeah. That's kind of sweet, right? Like, there's a little bit to like there.
Oh, I like the cheapness of it, right? It's super good.
What about the Eldest Reborn? Is that a good target? I think so.
I mean, that
Eldest Reborn is nice.
Very powerful.
And then you can still get, multicolor cards. Like if you want to go get the Hostage Taker or whatever, there's a variety of things you can do. If you wanted, it could be part of an enabler to set up, like it could be part of how you set up your Lich's Mastery deck. But you'd have to have a special kind of Lich's Mastery deck that obviously has like a lot of creatures, like maybe a bunch of those white creatures that gain life or something. I don't know. The ability to find a timely Yawgmoth's Vial Offering, depending on what the rest of your deck look like, I mean, that's not nothing. There's some dramatic effects. Like there's a bunch of weird screwballs too. Like it's an instant. So you could imagine, like, this is crazy, but like search up Garna the Blood Flame and then flash down Garna. That's the old 3 red and black 3/3 flash. When it enters the battlefield, return all the creature cards to your hand from your graveyard that went from anywhere.
Yeah,
including mail.
Yeah, so it could be, conditionally very powerful if the opponent swept you that turn, right?
Yeah. What if you're using this to set up your Primeval's Glorious Rebirth combo deck?
Well, I was just thinking about maybe getting an Assassin's Trophy with it.
Yeah, that's probably the way it'll really go. Dude, what about 1 copy of the Elder Dinosaur so that you can just Plague Wind them? That's a nice one to go get, right? Like the 6/6 Tetramach.
Yeah, I like that card. That's a very good card. In the words of Patrick Chapin, if Tetramach isn't good,
the format's got other problems.
Yeah,
right. And it does. So there's actually a different new black card that I kind of want to put a spotlight on. Reign of Notions. The new Read the Bones. Reign of Notions. 1 blue black sorcery. Surveil 2, then draw 2 cards. Reign of Notions deals 2 to you. So instead of Scry 2, you Surveil 2, and this card is part blue instead of just being straight black.
So Surveilling 2, we said we like better than Scrying 2, right?
Yeah.
I mean...
Definitely.
I played a lot of Read Them Bones, you know. The only downside I'd say is I played that card in Abzan decks or Orzhov decks typically, or sometimes in Rakdos decks. I typically think that blue decks have better options than taking 2. That's my caveat on this.
That's fair. I'm not sure that there's just so many other options too. Once it's part blue, I mean, because that was always Read the Bones' biggest advantage, was that you could play it in your non-blue deck. I mean, now there's all kinds of new stuff like Chemister's Insight, the new Hieroglyphic Illumination, 3 in a blue, draw 2 cards with Jumpstart. So instead of being like a Hieroglyphic Illumination that if you don't want, you can cycle it for something else, it's a Hieroglyphic Illumination that doesn't trick you into cycling it for something else, and in fact lets you cycle something else into it.
For it, yeah. I think that card's pretty cool. But it doesn't have Hieroglyphic Illumination's ability to dig you out of a weak mana draw.
Whoa. Yeah, it does. You spend 4, you draw 2 cards.
Well, I mean, like, Hieroglyphic Illumination, you might keep, like, a land light opening hand, and then it just digs you into, like, your 3rd and 4th lands.
Oh, no, that's the thing. This is helping you dodge accidentally trading in your Hieroglyphic Illumination for something else.
So you have to keep stronger hands, and it pays you off stronger.
You got to play more land.
Okay, I can live with that.
Dude, what's going on with Dream Eater? The 4 blue, 4/3 flying flash. When Dream Eater enters the battlefield, Surveil 4, as if that's a reasonable thing. Surveil 4, and when you do, you may return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So, like, you get to look at the top 4 and dump as many as you don't want. And then after you have that new information, you get to bounce something. What a weird card,
right? Yeah, so it's 6. That's super expensive. It has flash. That's pretty cool. It has flying. Okay, but it has 3 toughness. Right, so if this doesn't fit into an easily understood category, like people play 6 casting cost blue cards all the time, but they're typically pretty resilient, right? Because blue deck typically plays a small number of them to finish the game. So having only 3 toughness and no natural defensive capability puts it in an unusual category. But Surveil 4 is really powerful, and the Mana War ability that's pretty cool.
I think this card is more powerful and constructed than Aether Snipe.
Okay. You'll get no argument from me on that one. I mean, but I think you have to be pretty hard on the Surveil to want to play Dream Eater and Constructed, and any Constructed I can imagine right now.
Dude, I just want to 4/3 flash them. Just come down and be like, boom! Now your Karn is at 2 loyalty. Taste it.
Well, he is flying, right? So you can flash him, take out a token creature, and then just come roaring, across the red zone the next turn. It'll be hard to block.
So we mentioned it earlier, but dude, March of the Multitudes. We can't get out of here without looking at this, the latest in a long and proud line of Decree of Justices. This is X green, white, convoke, create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink.
Man, that lifelink is really meaningful addition to this, I think.
Oh yeah,
and convoke is such a powerful mechanic because, like, you could, I mean, not that you would have no land, right? But it like fixes for you, because you can borrow the color of the creatures themselves.
Yep.
If you have like 2 March of the Multitudes, right, and you cast the first one, and it's just like, all right, I got some guys out, or any token enabler, really, right? Like that makes for a massive next March of the Multitude. So you can go like really, really wide, and you can combine it with some of these other things we've been talking about, like the Relentless Assault ability on Resurgence. I guess you just got to cross your fingers that you don't get Chain Whirlered, because it's real bad to get Chain Whirlered on.
Well, this is even an instant. So, like, you're going to get a Kraken. And, it's a lot like opening up a booster pack of Ice Age and being lucky. You're going to get a Kraken. And the March of the Multitudes is the lifelink is such a powerful addition to a spell like this. I mean, we've already seen plenty of times where some of these instant speed token makers have seen play that didn't have nearly the flexibility that this one has.
So it costs 2 more than Secure the Wastes, right?
Right.
But lifelink is huge. And Convoke is, I guess, in a deck that wants to do this, that has other token enablers, Convoke is just so much more than a 2-mana discount. Like, if you just had cast like any one of the 2 or 3 mana token producers that are already available, it's already putting you ahead.
Yeah, I think that it's also important, if you're going to be evaluating these, it's important to really look at the context in which it exists. We've already seen, like, we already have one super dope Convoke enabler in Amara, Soul of the Accord, the green-white 2/2 that whenever Amara becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So, like, every time you Convoke with Amara, you're getting another 1/1 white soldier. Not just this card or on any other card. You know, like, if you use Amara with, like, say you tap her to help cast Conclave Tribunal, boom, now you have another token, and that extra token can also help Convoke things in the future.
Oh yeah, it's an important note. I mean, like, I think Amara becomes tapped most commonly just by attacking, right? Because it has
straightforward anyway.
Yeah, it has like no natural ability to get tapped. Obviously, when you're combining it in a deck that has other Convoke cards, or maybe there's other things like, you know, tap a creature to do something, abilities that we don't know about yet. But I think let's say attacking with Amara in the early game is probably pretty good. What do you think about like Legion War Boss and Amara and March of the Multitudes all playing together? Do you think the mana's not good enough yet?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because there's Boros, right? There's not Stomping Grounds, but there's, you know, Boros can bridge, and just green has to work a little harder.
But, like, how much are you really getting out of the red in this deck?
I mean, the War Boss is just a powerful token producer.
Yeah, but you're not going to be short on the end powerful token producers, right?
I guess.
Dude, here's a combo for you. Are you ready for killer combo? If you've got yourself an Amara, Soul of the Accord, and you've got a Maze of Ith, and let's see, we got to put some kind of an aura on here so that you can like tap Amara to untap your Maze of Ith. I bet there's a couple different man, that's what we got to do. We got to set up some sort of a like busted Maze of Ith combo deck for Legacy.
Oh, so like Amara attacks, Maze of Ith untaps Amara, and then they do a dance together and make 1,000,000 tokens.
Yeah, you need a third party. It's definitely one of those Maneja combos.
I thought you were just going to say, like, Izoni Thousand-Eyed and March of the Multitudes. So those cards are both in the set together.
Sure, you can do that too. But I think Amara seems super dope. And it's not lost on me that this is yet another dope elf. You know, one last one, dude. One last one before we roll out. But Beast Whisperer, here's an elf. And man, they couldn't have put a bigger flashing light on it. It's 2 green, 2/3 elf druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card.
I mean, how many times have we played some equivalent of like 4 mana, 2/2, not even 2/3 creature, draw a card, right? Like countless times, some version of that has been played in standard and smaller formats. This doesn't draw a card the first time, right? But everybody after it, all of a sudden you have like a, you know, whatever the top end of the Eidolon machine was, this guy's got it all at once.
What about this guy with like Heritage Druid? Dude, I'm on such a Heritage Druid kick. I don't know what's wrong with me, but man, I like drawing cards.
Well, I mean, I just think that does Heritage Druid need Beast Whisperer? Does it make Heritage Druid's life easier?
Yeah.
It's an
every
elf,
time you play
right?
an elf. Yeah, and every time you play an elf. Yeah, that's the Beast Whisperer's primary interaction, is that it's 1/3. It goes in 1/3 on a Runaway Steam-Kin for green. That's its job. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think this card seems pretty dope. I'm glad Paradoxical Outcome has rotated out, but you know, I got a feeling that we're going to see a little bit more of this one at some point. This is going to appear in so many 21st percentile decks.
I mean, I'm just imagining that Explore District Guide action I've been thinking about all cast. So many cards drawn, such small bodies relative to their casting costs.
All right, man.
So we're breaking for now, but bonus
not even for very long.
Yeah, less than 24 hours. Bonus episode tomorrow.
Hint: it involves the words "draw a card."
All right, that was a good hint.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, man.
In life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind.